I was receiving texts from various people, and I have great respect for that are in this profession. And they were wondering what was wrong with Jim Nantz at the beginning of the Buffalo game against the Kansas City Chiefs. We know what it was all about. He's hearing footsteps.
Yeah, for years.
Footsteps from this man, Ian Eagle, who joins us here on the program. Ian, how are you, my friend? Thanks so much for doing this. I know you can't comment on that.
Yeah, thank you, as always, for the very comfortable segue into the interview. It's so seamless.
He's like, no, don't listen to that conversation, boss. No, don't listen to that.
I never said that. Yeah, you know, some
The
intern
president
at the
of
New York
CBS.
Times is going to take this and blow it out of proportion here. That Eagle is already,
Ryan said Nance is done.
yeah, Eagle campaigning for number one spot. Well, in our hearts, you're number one, and now Noah Eagle. My God, I mean, this kid.
Your son's
Is
great.
he on
Your son's
the biggest meteoric rise you've ever seen in the industry, Ian? I mean, you may be hearing footsteps.
Well, you guys have the same voice. You know that? Like, every time he's on, I'm like, Ian's on NBC now? What the fuck? I'm like, when did Ian oh, it must be his son. I mean, he does such a great job.
Yeah, and all I can think when he's on is, I used to clean your poop.
That's great.
Yeah, that is one way to look at it.
I love
That's
that.
for sure.
Oh my God, that's great.
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
You know how I'm always bugging you to change the open to the show, like if it goes for like a couple of weeks and people are mouthing the words along with it. I think we could open every show the rest of our lives with that.
I'm finishing this week. I obviously changed it. I've already considered changing it. I just love it. I love hearing
I can't get enough of it. Yeah.
I just that's classic.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Looks like it's going to be a nice day. I don't know. Is it cloudy outside? I don't even know anymore.
It's cloudy as hell, yeah.
Rare that I make an outdoor appearance these days, although a very favorable result to some of the things that I had questions about yesterday, which is good. And I don't want to jinx it, but a couple of the ancillary problems that I was experiencing as I'm going through this ridiculous medical episode where it'll be, this is it. This is the last week of the IV treatments, Lubie. Can you believe it's been 6 weeks of this shit?
That's crazy.
6 weeks. When you first hear about it, you're going, fuck, how am I going to do that? The time goes by quickly, people. It really does. That was the lesson in all of this. And then I said this to Jim Sarney when he was still stuck in the hospital there at Holy Cross and I was being released. I finally got bailed out by somebody. I don't know who put up the money, but I got bailed out. It really is. It's easier to get out of jail than it is to get out of a hospital. Libby, have you ever been hospitalized? I hope not,
no.
but
Thank God, no.
I never had been before, but yeah, I guess, I had been in the infirmary at Syracuse because everybody, did you have mono when you were in college? Did you have mono?
Was diagnosed.
Was that even
with
common
mono.
then? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. Everyone supposedly gets it. I was diagnosed with mono, but supposedly that's what they gave everyone. I really just had strep throat, and
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I just needed them to give me penicillin, and it went away literally instantly. But yes, they diagnosed me with mono. I'm like, but I feel fine. Like mono, you're supposedly like out of it for weeks. Like,
Oh, it's incredible. It wasn't weeks for me, but the day that it hit me, because I'm the last guy that wants to go to a doctor or any medical kind of attention. Mustang's always, you got to go to the emergency room, which thank God I actually listened this time. But in general, I'm like, nah, it'll be fine. Why don't I give a shit? And I remember thinking, wow, I'm exceptionally tired. But I was doing a lot of drugs back then and, not really paying attention to much else except women. And, I thought, well, geez, I'm just really, really, really tired. And so I could barely get out of bed one day. I go down to the infirmary there, and there were like another 25 people in there, looking like they're in worse shape than me. It was like that scene in Papillon where he sticks his head out of the solitary confinement cell, and he looks down the road there, and everybody looks like shit. And they all ask each other, "How do I look?" And then they look back and say, "You look great." I mean, that's over 50 years ago. That was the only time ever in 72 years on this planet that I was ever staying overnight in any kind of medical facility. And getting out of there was almost impossible. I mean, what you had to go through was just incredible. The paperwork and the conferences back and forth. And this doctor had to tell that doctor that this doctor was crazy. And finally, I got out of there. But I remember when I finally was on the curb there waiting for Mustang to pick me up, I thought, my God, how wonderful is this just to be standing outside breathing fresh air? So you do develop a little bit of an appreciation for the simplest of things. I mean, like taking a shower, for that example. No wonder. I mean, you guys are happy I haven't been showing up to a lot of the lunch boxes there on the road. But no, 1 week to go on this. And yesterday, a very favorable diagnosis. Although, I mean, I don't even know. Is this guy a real doctor that I'm seeing? This infectious disease guy?
I would think.
Is it possible that he's just some imposter, some crazy guy that had to practice in Hialeah in a duplex before he got this job? I don't know. Seems like a very decent guy and very, very favorable. And then he prescribed something for me because I was having some other problems, like I was telling you, with like my knee, and there was some swelling in my foot. And I thought, oh shit, this is really going to mess up the recovery here. And I thought I needed, some kind of juice jacked into my knee. And they prescribed something for me yesterday. I took all the pills in at one time because it was late in the day when I picked up the prescription. It's one of those time things, this prednisone stuff that you're supposed to take one in the morning and then one after you have a snack. I mean, what am I, Rex Ryan? I don't know. I mean, I eat a couple of times a day and that's it. So I woke up this morning. When I woke up this morning, Luby, all of a sudden, all of that was gone,
Nice.
like in one day. Which I don't want to jinx it though, Libby, because it could always come back.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, you can't wait to just do normal things like walk around outside. So fortunately, 1 week to go in this nonsense, and then we'll be hopefully back to normal. That'd be great. Speaking of normal, I mean, let's bring on the one normal guy that we feature on this program.
Honestly.
And it's like the Addams family, the crew that we have here, and then we have the one person that seems to live right in life the right way, and that's John Congemi joins us here on the show. John, how are you feeling? I heard you had a little bit of a setback there with a head cold or something.
Yeah, feeling a lot better, guys. It was a weird weekend, kind of had all kind of sports going on, but the Super Bowl was the main attraction, and it lived up to the billing. Gosh, what a game and what a season in the NFL. I guess they had the most viewers ever watching the game on CBS.
Most watched show ever. Yes.
Which is incredible. You could see the NFL really gets it. They're relevant every month of the year, and they find a way to stay in the news. And most of the time it's in a positive light, and couldn't have been any better with the performance and the entertainment that was put on display on Sunday.
What do you think? I mean, the first half, a lot of people were kind of panning the game. It seemed.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed the defensive kind of struggle because everybody, I don't know, if it's not explosive plays, people think it's bad football.
Yeah.
Well, it's good football on the other side.
Yes.
So I appreciated the beginning of the game because it shouldn't be easy. It should be a struggle. You've got two of the best teams in the National Football League that have proved it over a plethora of games and playoff pressure to get to where they're ultimately at in the Super Bowl. And there's two teams left. Let the defense bang their chest a little bit. I thought it was. I enjoyed it because you knew it wasn't going to be that way for long with those two offenses and those two, electric players at quarterback and all the weapons that they have. I just think that I enjoyed the way it started because you knew it was only going to go the other way. And then it was going to come down to maybe a mistake or a freak play or something that kind of throw it one way or another. And that really never transpired either. I thought it was just good football, and one team was able to score a touchdown and one team was held to a field goal. So I thought it was good all around. I thought it was good for 60 minutes, and then the overtime was entertaining as well.
Yeah, great drama all throughout the second half. The Chiefs catch that break on the fumble recovery on the punt, and I go in for the score. They take the lead after it seemed like they were being handled pretty well. You could kind of sense a little bit of a momentum shift taking place because I thought Spagnuolo, I don't know why he wasn't as aggressive in the first half because the natural instinct would be to think that, okay, let's really pressure Brock Purdy and see if he can stand up under pressure. And he was acquitting himself extremely well. I think he was playing better than Mahomes in the first half of that ball game. He was throwing some nice Congemi pinpoint passes. The plays were working. He was hanging in there. I mean, it wasn't as if they had no pass rush, but the 49ers offensive line was doing just well enough to keep them at bay so that Purdy could get off some passes over the middle and even to the outside. And then in the second half, it seemed like Spagnuolo said, hey, wait a minute, man. No more Mississippis. We're coming after the guy. And that altered the course of the game on defense. And then Mahomes found a little bit of a rhythm, and Kelsey woke up. and some of the other guys made some contributing plays, and Kansas City's offense started to turn it on. And yet, even with all that, they found themselves, in a compromising position all the way up until the very bitter end.
Yeah, it was fun. You felt yourself going back and forth, going, "Who's going to win this game?" San Francisco had their opportunities, and if they could cash in, they were going to take the upper hand, which they did early in the game. And then you knew Mahomes in Kansas City was going to push back at some point. And I think it was the defense that kind of changed the momentum of the game towards Kansas City, because when, as you mentioned, Spagnuolo kind of turned up the heat, it seemed like that was the only time that Brock Purdy didn't have an answer quickly, especially late in the game and in overtime when they pressured. It seemed like there had to be another alternative that was quicker than the in and out move at the goal line, where he had to just kind of throw it up, put some air under it, and hopefully my guy gets it or nobody gets it. There were other chances on third down, which I thought was a big tale in the game. San Francisco, very poor on third down. Kansas City, I think they were 9 of 19 on third down. They were able to stay on the field. And there was a stretch in that game where Purdy was like 0 for 4, 0 for 5. San Fran couldn't get any momentum going. You get the fumble by McCaffrey. There was a lot of things in the middle towards the end of that game where you felt, okay, here come the champs. Here they're going to find a way to win. You're giving them it was very reminiscent of a Tom Brady game in New England, where it was like, oh man, this game's written. It's done.
Yeah,
it's going to happen this way, even though you have to see it to believe it, but it's going to happen. And that's the kind of feeling I had watching the game.
Yeah, and what was great about it too, I mean, I think they let a lot of stuff go, the officials.
A lot of holding calls.
Yeah, I mean, almost every time I saw a replay on a Kelsey route, he was being brutally held throughout the route. Not that I'm trying to favor the Chiefs in that aspect. I'm sure it was going on the other side. It's just every time I saw a replay, I'm like, well, wait a minute, man, where's the holding call? Including that potential catch with 9 seconds to go down in the end zone. I mean, he's being held the entire route, and no flag. I sort of enjoyed that. I know they had a late flag for holding on the Chiefs when San Francisco had the ball in their last possession. Made a difference, but that was one that you had to call. Other than that, they didn't seem to be overwhelmingly intrusive into the ball game, and
No.
you couldn't really look at. I mean, the most egregious move that seemed to be made, that was most criticized about the coaching, was Shanahan going for that fourth down instead of the game-tying field goal, and it worked. So, it kind of rebuffs a lot of the people that are saying the man was crazy, although it reeked of Dan Campbell at that point, and the guy barely made it. Otherwise, I mean, it's a disaster. So, that was a crucial coaching decision that turned out to be very favorable as they went in for the eventual go-ahead score. Oh, no, they ended up with a field goal in that spot.
Field goal there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, the thing that was looming like a sword of Damocles over the entire San Francisco effort was that one blocked extra point.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that their kicker had made 2 phenomenally long field goals, including at one point what was a Super Bowl record, only to be eclipsed by Hunter when he had a chance to kick one longer, and he kicks a low-line drive that you would have thought would have been blocked, and it goes through. But in general, very even game. We were talking about it before, John, as a toss-up, and we're kind of taking a guess as to who was going to win the game and which way to bet it. So a lot of people felt that taking the points with Mahomes was probably more fortuitous than laying them with San Francisco was going to be. But other than that, I mean, I'm with you. You couldn't have asked for a more entertaining ball game and a more interesting outcome. Now, what were your thoughts on what are your thoughts on the overtime rule? We've discussed it many times here, where it just seems like that they've never gotten it right, the overtime rule in professional football, and then now Shanahan's receiving an immense amount of criticism for taking the ball, which I thought was the right move. If you look at it, let's say, even though Kansas City knows now what it has to do and they can use the fourth downs because they have to, essentially, and it takes that decision out of the game. You've taken clock management out of the game. And yet I'd much rather be the team in the position for that third possession. People are laughing at that notion, saying, oh, well, geez, there was no third possession, DeForest. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, by all theory, you're thinking, we score a touchdown, even if they come back and score a touchdown, now we have all the advantages. So why wouldn't you? What would you do in that spot? Would you kick off or take the ball?
I think with the new rules, I would have taken the ball.
Yeah, me
I
too.
want to go. I want to go down and put a score on the board and say, hey, you got to match us, whether they get it, the extra down or not. You have a defense that is part of your team that's got to hold up their end of the bargain as well. So I think that the overtime rules, I don't know which way I like better. I don't know if I like both teams have to have the ball. I mean, it seems more fair that way, but it seemed to be finality. There was a finality to the other way, and there was a desperation to the other way, whereas you're hanging on the coin toss for dear life because you knew if you found it and you won it, that it was going to be 75-80% chance you were going to win the game. Go down and get a score, and tough shit. You guys don't get the
only had to
ball.
go
So
40
what?
yards.
Right. So I just felt like I liked that aspect of the overtime. I think this is a good way to appease the people that have been complaining and griping about the old rules for years, but it added just as much drama, I guess, because you knew the other team was going to get the ball. You knew they had a chance to win the game if they could outscore San Francisco on that one drive, and they ultimately did. But I thought it would have been great had they gone down, kicked the field goal. Now you've got exactly what has been there in the NFL rules for generations. Whoever scores is going to win. So I don't know what the right one is. I think it worked out for the drama the way they changed it, but I didn't have a problem with it the way it was. Just like when we talked a few weeks ago about the touchback rule. It's been that way. I don't know how you improve it. I think it's good the way it was.
Yeah, you were surprisingly old school on that. Andy, our good friend Andy, and we're wishing him a quick recovery from yet another medical setback here. But he says he put my proposition up on some website, some football website, which is, and I still believe that this is the best solution to the overtime inequities and all the different things that people are talking about today about that he should have actually kick the ball off there and defend it, and then he knows, what he needs to do, and you can use the fourth downs because, you don't have to make a decision if it's 4th and 1 at your own 13, you're going for it. Whereas, if this rule isn't in play, you would be, more likely kicking the ball away at that stage. He says, and my contention was, and I don't know, Lubie, do you agree with me on this thing? Because I just think you pick up the game where it left off because of the nature of the way football is contested. That you don't need to, you're not going to have a jump ball to decide it. My problem with all of it is that it depends too much on who wins the coin toss. It's like you were tossing a coin in the NBA draft, and the number 1 pick was going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the number 2 pick was going to be Neil Walk out of Florida. I mean, franchise history is riding on this, not on a decision, but just on the coin flip at that point. And I don't like games to be contingent on just pure 50-50 luck. So I'm thinking, hey, why not just pick up the game where it left off? In other words, you go into an overtime period, and San Francisco's got the ball there at the 25-yard line, and that's where the overtime begins. It would seem more fair to me than restarting the game based on a coin flip. If there was some other way, like in basketball, you got a jump ball, in hockey, you've got a face off, and other sports, it just seems more equitable than having the coin flip be that significant in deciding the outcome of a football game. What do you think? Am I crazy? Start the game right where it left off.
I don't like that idea only because there would be a huge advantage to the team that has the ball because we got a couple minutes left. Let's just milk this thing down to the 50 instead of going for it because we know we're going to get the ball. We only got to make 20 yards to kick a field goal, and we're going to win the game.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I don't mind the change that they made compared to where it was. I didn't dislike the other rule where it was sudden death right away.
Yeah.
But I kind of like it where you go, okay, you're playing for 60 minutes as a player. And when that 60 minutes is exhausted, you know you're going to get a fresh start and both teams are going to have an equal chance to win. That seems pretty good to me. It resolves the issue of the luck in terms of the coin toss, and each team's going to get an opportunity to get the ball pretty much on the 25-yard line, to your point, where because there was not one kick return in the game, I think for the first time ever, maybe in a Super Bowl.
Did you have that in a prop bet? Is that
No, I didn't. I didn't even know it was possible.
Yeah.
But I like the way they ended up doing it. It's probably more fair.
All right, we'll have more of a, if I can turn this alarm off, we'll have more of a postscript here with John Congemi and see where it's all going and factor in some of the upcoming questions for the offseason and next year and where it leaves the Miami Dolphins. All straight ahead here on the Defo Show with Mike Lubie Lubitz. But we have to tell you, I mean, wow. I mean, is this not the time? We're towards the end of February, middle of February here, John. I would imagine the Big Chill is just absolutely cranking down there. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill in Key Largo.
Yeah, I haven't heard from my brother in about a month, so that means they must be swamped. They must be busy. All the
At least he's not calling to borrow money. That's good.
Yeah, all the renovations must have taken place, and I think they're up and ready to go. And I know it's a strike zone for the season, so I'm sure that many people are going in and out of Key Largo, stopping at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill or using it as a final destination, because why would you go any further when you see the property and the bayside views and the first-class service and food? Amanda and Dominic and Larry do such a great job down there. It's just a great place. I had friends go down there not too long ago, and they had a blast, and they were raving about the food and raving about the accommodations. It's just a first-class place to be in the Keys.
They could put a sign up there, just fuck Key West. Right?
Miles
to Key West, 150. Yeah.
Behind that one.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, you don't need to go any further. Just stop right here, and then your journey is over. All right, coming back with more with John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook here on this Tuesday as we wrap up the football season. Jeff DeForest, we got Mike Lubie Lubitz, and the great John Congemi. Back with more in a moment. Now that
the time.
It's 8:31.
Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
John Congemi. Now, did you scale it back when you were head-to-head with Danny there at Augusta National? Because he doesn't like to lose.
Actually, guys, you're right. Dan doesn't like to lose in anything. And the only time I was ever able to go to Augusta, I think the Samsung guy backed out, and Danny asked me about 11:30 at night, and I put on my shoes and went to bed. And I woke up and went to Augusta, made a hole-in-one on the 16th hole, and Dan said he hit a better shot than me, so he took the tee on 17. So I let him do that. I didn't want to get
stepped in front of you after a hole-in-one.
When you add it up, I flew up on a private jet. I was going to eat for free. I played the golf course. I figured he deserves the tee on 17.
I mean, the audacity just to cut right in front of you after a hole-in-one.
Buenos dias. The cafecito is piping hot. Why not enjoy it with Defo and Lubie? It's now time for the Defo Show.
That's great. I mean, we have a gentleman here on the program that we feature every week, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, who probably has a golf accomplishment that even Tiger Woods can't boast about. You think Tiger, even in a practice round, ever made that can't be easy. A hole in one on 16. I doubt there are very many of them. There,
Well,
and
you know what, Defo, you'd be surprised how many people you run into that say, "Oh yeah, it's my buddy and the hole in one." I'm like, really?
yeah, sure.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know the accuracy to all that, but yeah, I'm sure the chip that Tiger hit there at 16 when that Nike ball was just rolling and rolling and rolling, one of the greatest scenes in golf, I guess, ever. And that hole's been famous for great shots and hole in one. So yeah, that was pretty cool for me to be there just to play the golf course, number one, and to get lucky enough to make a hole in one was incredible.
Well, where was the pin placement on that?
It wasn't Sunday back left, but it was down on the bottom shelf about the middle of the green. So it was probably about, I don't know, 20 feet up from 15 feet up from that Sunday pin position.
Because I always love that when you have to hit the ball there on the right, and then it rolls all the way to the left. Of course, it's treacherous when they have that low right pin position.
Yeah, that's one of the trickier. I mean, every green out there, you could set a ball anywhere on those greens and probably 4 or 5 putt. If you don't know what you're doing, and even if you do know what you're doing, you could do the same thing. That's how undulating the greens are, and how on TV it doesn't display how up and down the severity of the terrain there at Augusta National.
Lubie's got something. He wants to get back on track here.
So Super Bowl 58 done. Chiefs win 3 and 5 appearances, 4 appearances in 5 years, 6 straight AFC championships. The Niners seemed to control that entire game and fell short. Mahomes, Andy Reid was just too much, it felt like, in the end. Spagnuolo as well did a really good job in the second half, changing things for the Niners. They weren't moving the ball anywhere near as much. But when you're sitting here as a Dolphins fan, a lot of people ask this question, and I don't know if I'm being delusional or naive, but like seeing the Dolphins play the Chiefs well twice, and they did. They played the Chiefs well twice. The second time they were down half their defense, and half their offensive line, and still were in the game into the late third, if not fourth quarter, at Kansas City. When Kansas City was sort of up and down a lot of this year, I felt different. But everyone asks this question, and you are an analyst of the Dolphins for CBS 4, so I'm sure you were doing your analyst. Where do the Dolphins stand with both of these teams? And most people go, they're not even close. I actually sort of differ in my opinion. When you think about the Miami Dolphins compared to these two teams who finished this season 1-2, where do you place the Dolphins in accordance to these two teams?
Well, speaking of our golf and our golf analogies, if you ever played golf with someone and say, yeah, you're on the dance floor, but you can't hear the music. I think that's kind of where the Dolphins are right now. They're on the dance floor. They're relevant. They're a team that is going to get your attention if you're on the opposing sideline. But I think Kansas City uses it, like a ball of yarn and a cat. It's like, we'll mess around and we'll be okay. We'll find a way to beat these guys. The Miami Dolphins need to figure out how to beat the Buffalo Bills. Forget San Francisco and forget Kansas City, because you're not in that realm yet. If you can't beat Buffalo, you're not going anywhere, because that means you're not going to get a home playoff game, and you're gonna be at the mercy of the Mother Nature gods in terms of where you're going to play and what the elements are. And Miami it's a fact. Miami doesn't play well in the cold. They haven't won a playoff game in years. They haven't been in the Super Bowl conversation other than the last couple of seasons for a very long time. So it all starts in the AFC East. And until Miami figures out that hurdle, I don't know why Dolphin fans are talking about Super Bowl, because for 20 years it was Tom Brady in New England. And now for the last 5 or 6, it's Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. If you can't figure that dynamic out, Super Bowl is irrelevant. You have to take that first step. And that first step is finally not just splitting with the Bills, it's trying to beat them twice in a season so you have the upper hand, because that ultimately is going to decide where you're going. Now, the Dolphins could have done that last year had they finished off Tennessee, because Buffalo was so poor during the middle to the end of the season. And they could have backed their way in and said, Buffalo's irrelevant this year. They would have had to go on the road to play Kansas City or whoever it was. Miami would have had the home game against the Steelers or whoever it would have been. They would have had the upper hand. Now you're in the conversation. Now you're kind of relevant. But until that happens, you can only cross your fingers and hope the offseason goes well and all the guys that were injured come back and give you another chance to be able to take down Buffalo.
What are your thoughts on so the Bills supposedly are super overcapped. So a lot of people think that may have been our last sight of the Bills. We'll see. Josh Allen will be there. As we know, it goes from the quarterback on. You can find ways with or without other guys. But so Fangio's gone. They bring in Anthony Weaver, which I thought was a really good hire. It seems like a guy that had a lot to do with the Ravens defense that was scary all year. And he is younger. And they go and bring in Joe Brady, a guy who did a really good job with the Green Bay Packers, actually. So they have two guys who really know defense and are younger guys. What are you looking for from them to get into that conversation? Because you're not wrong. It's not even just the Bills. The last 2 years under Mike McDaniel, they're horrendous against playoff teams. Not even average. They're dreadful against playoff teams. Do you see them finding a way to close? Look at what the Lions did from one year to the next. It's not like the Dolphins have less talent than the Lions. Can you see them closing the gap this offseason? What are you looking for them to do this offseason to possibly close the gap?
Well, look, that's a good example, Lubie. Look at the Lions and look at the way they're coached. Look what's demanded of their team by their head coach. Don't beat yourselves. Don't make mistakes in terms of interceptions, turnovers, pre-snap penalties, all those things. And they go for it, but it got them in trouble at the end, right? You go for it, you go right up to the line, but they go over the edge.
Yes.
And I think that Mike McDaniel has a little bit of that in him in terms of, he's a gambler. He's playing the analytics. He's checking with his two, guys coming out of the, with the white coats and the white rooms going, hey, is this good? We're good with this? Yeah, we're good. So we go with it, right? There's not a lot of gut. It's all analytics. And I think the Dolphins lead a little bit more gut in terms of execution in critical times against critical teams. That comes from preparation, but it also comes from finally making those plays, those 5 or 6 games that determine if you win or lose. The Dolphins need to be on the right side of those against those good teams. It doesn't seem like over the past couple of seasons, against the teams you're better than, they make all those plays. But the teams that you're even with, or the teams that you're lacking talent against, or maybe just not as good in terms of the past couple of seasons, can they make those game-defining plays in those moments? And all of a sudden you make one, now you make two. Now you're getting a little bit more of that inner confidence that, maybe we are one of those teams. So I don't know if it's personnel. Yes, the personnel is always going to change on every team. That's just the dynamic of it. But I don't understand how the Dolphins can take the next step until Tua and the Bradley Chubbs, all the guys that are the leaders of this team, they have to be able to make those plays. It's not the secondary players. It's Jordan. It's Phillips getting a 3-sack game when you need it the most. It's coming up with Jalen Ramsey, a 2-interception game against a good team, not against name one of the bottom feeders that we're going to slap around. It's those guys making those types of plays. It's running the football against the Bills for 135 yards, and they can't. And Josh Allen's on the sidelines.
Yeah,
those are the types of scenarios that you'd like to see the Dolphins in year 3 under this regime. And that's before who are we going to pay? How's our salary cap? All that stuff's going to figure its way out. But the thing that hasn't figured its way out over the last 2 seasons against good teams, can you make more plays? Can you make more game-defining plays than the other team? And that's ultimately what leads you to victory against Dallas and Buffalo and Kansas City and Baltimore and on down the list, Philadelphia.
Never, John, in my lifetime of covering the Dolphins or the NFL for that matter, have I seen so much fanfare attached to the acquisition and the hiring of an assistant coach. And that was the whole Vic Fangio storyline last year. He was coveted by many, many teams. He had been a bricklayer as a head coach, but outstanding. I mean, this was Bud Carson, Buddy Ryan, Bill
Right.
Arnsparger, all rolled into one. He was going to come here. He's going to lead the defense that had acquired some valuable assets in what turned out to be Chubb later on in the season before he got hurt. Jalen Ramsey certainly was a very celebrated acquisition. You thought, my God, this guy's going to have great players to work with. And on top of that, he supposedly is the best in the business. Comes here for years. Statistically, I mean, it wasn't terrible. There were times the Dolphins defense actually kept them in some games when they were struggling a little bit on offense, which was rare early in the year, but a little more commonplace later on in key spots, as you mentioned, where you needed to grind out a few first downs to ice a ball game against Tennessee or so many other situations they were in. But what validity you attach? I mean, normally when these departures come about by mutual agreement, and Fangio ends up in Philadelphia, where they're probably very happy to have him. But and were any of these assertions credible? Where supposedly the story was that Fangio actually was just blatantly turned off by the attitude of the Dolphins' defensive players, and he kind of implied, I guess, and I don't know. I mean, I didn't hear him say this, but or see it written anywhere other than speculation in columns that that was one of the reasons that he wanted to make an exit here. That the usual soft statement about by mutual agreement. He's got family in Philadelphia, whatever. But the criticism was there that this guy, being old school, I guess, wasn't in tune at all with what seemed to be sort of a cavalier attitude he felt was coming from his defensive players. Is there any credibility to that storyline, or is that just stuff that people made up to add to the drama of his departure?
I don't know. I don't know if that's factual or not. I don't know if that's hearsay. It could be close to the truth. It might be, fragments of the truth. Outside in, my speculation, probably 40 or 50% true.
Oh yeah, well,
I'm just on outside looking in.
Is that common around the league, though? Would you say?
I don't know
today's
that.
athlete,
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that by being around Vic for 5 or 10 minutes, and then knowing how the modern day athlete works,
Yeah.
that dynamic was, let's cross our fingers, and if things are rolling, if things
Yeah.
are going well,
Then everyone's
it's
happy.
going to work. It's
Yeah.
going to work. If the Chargers run for 400 yards on week 1, but we still win, and then now you're 20 something against the run, you get better, right? You get more players playing to a higher level. The defense starts carrying some games and helping the Dolphins majority of the time to win games. It gets tolerable in the meeting room. But at the end of the day, I think the modern day athlete runs the team more than the head coach, the coordinators. I think it's on them, and maybe there's some truth to that. I think ultimately Vic Fangio never gets to Miami if the Eagles make that move a year earlier. He stays in Philly. He was a consultant. He becomes the coordinator, and the Dolphins never have Vic Fangio on their staff. Well, I think the Dolphins were lucky to have a guy like that to bring some reality and bring some coaching and bring some stubbornness to combat what you're seeing maybe on the offensive side and the way your head coach coaches your team. I think you need a little bit of salt and pepper, in terms of, I just think it can't be all sunshine and roses.
Oh yeah.
So I like the dynamic of that, but ultimately it didn't. I don't think it worked for the players and maybe some of the players that were more vocal on the defensive side. And I think Fangio was happily trotting out of Miami to go to Philadelphia, probably where he wanted to be anyway, a year ago, and being the coordinator of a good football team. So I think it works. I think it works for both teams. Now you get a younger guy who's coached on a really good defense that had Pro Bowl players, that was probably a better fit for the entire dynamic of the staff in Miami. But that doesn't mean he's going to be, a player's coach.
No.
I think he's still going to bring, he's going to demand what you need to demand out of that position. But a different voice sometimes is, in essence, what you need. It's all in the delivery sometimes, and the messenger, more importantly, to get your point across.
Well, the criticisms I thought were weird were a lot, and Fangio never said this. It came from Jaws, and I didn't know Jaws was still doing media. I haven't seen him in a freaking decade.
I didn't know he was alive.
He's a Philadelphia guy too, so
Yeah.
I don't know what validity with that. But the ones that were weird were Jalen Ramsey, whatever you want to say about him, and I've followed him since FSU all the way to here. He's never shied from working hard.
No.
Dude literally had an injury where he should have been out for most of the year. Came back not only early, but literally the minute he was on that field, and he was the best defensive player for that unit the minute he was on that field. He literally had 2 interceptions his first freaking game. So the hard working thing was totally bogus. And Javon Holland was a guy that was a second-round pick that had all these injuries in college and has busted his ass to become one of the best safeties in football. So it was like, to target those two guys, talk about hard work. Like, yeah, I don't know if Fangio fit. Like, I feel like there's a big disconnect between. And the other thing was, and we've talked about this all the time, the great coaches mold their systems to the players they have. And we talked about this all year. I felt like the defense, some of the guys were not being used the way that they excel. And I get you have a system, but when you have 2 stud corners who are good in man and it can allow you to bring more pressure when you aren't getting pressure, and you say, fuck that, I run this system. I'm going to have Jalen Ramsey cover their 3rd receiver and Xavier Howard cover their 2nd. And we're going to put freaking Kohu on Stephon Diggs. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a layman, and what we've heard after is that's literally what was happening, was his system was this. And Ramsey would go, but coach, let me cover fucking Diggs. Like, please, he's killing us. And I can annihilate this guy. I have in the past. And he was not even listening to Ramsey. It's like, look.
Well, that's where you get into the personalities and the person delivering the message. And on the other side, it's the old school coach kind of accepting some of the things that the players out on the field are telling you that is reality. Whether your system is great or not, sometimes your system needs to evolve and encapsulate what the talent is at corner, at linebacker, at defensive end. And you only have to go back a little bit. Remember when Brian Flores tried to make Minkah Fitzpatrick in the box type of strong safety? And
that was
Minkah goes,
good decision. Yeah.
No, not so fast. I want out of here if that's where you're going to use
one of
me.
the best safeties in all of football.
Right. So I could see where Javon Holland and maybe to a certain extent Jalen Ramsey felt like, hey, we're giving you feedback. We're not trying to do it to toot our own horn. We're just saying that I'm going to be able to excel a little bit better for this team if you utilize my skills in this fashion. Well, that fashion didn't fit Fangio's scheme. And he was only going to bend so far.
Yeah.
So that's where you get the rub, you get the kind of heads butting, and now that leads to another issue. And then something else happens. Now you get injuries. Yeah. And now you're kind of chasing it from scheme standpoint and coaching the next man up mentality of who's available. So you don't want to alter as a coordinator too much because you don't want to expose your scheme, but you're doing it with lesser talent.
Yep.
So I think there was a bunch of stuff that happened, but basically I think those guys were trying to voice their opinion to say this would be better for us. And I don't think there was a whole lot of budge on the other side.
Jalen Ramsey talks a lot, and it's funny, but he's never been known as a prima donna. We've never heard teammates or coaches give him crap. Javon Holland was the same thing. So that was my issue. It was like, but these guys have never had, like, Ramsey's played multiple defenses and excelled everywhere under tough coaches. Not like Sean McVay's known as a sweetheart. Like, he's a new guy, but he's very tough. Jacksonville, it wasn't like, again, Marone and whoever he played there, it wasn't like they were sweet. They were McDaniel. Like, he's never had Jimbo Fisher and FSU's, not, like, he's never been known, and he's never had an issue with any coach. So it was like, is it that they're not, they're being modern guys, or the coach is just not listening? Like, that's the one thing in this day and age. It's not like all players want to run the team, but the players make so much money that they're, especially veteran all pros, are at least listened to. And look, Brian Flores, outside of Fitzpatrick, didn't have an issue with any of his stars, right?
No.
Howard, Holland never had issues with Flores, and he's a tough coach, right? But he's a little younger, and it feels like Weaver, look, in Baltimore, there's no way that defense was playing like that, and he's some pussycat. Like, I'm sure the dude doesn't mess around, and this defense needs that. But you also have to understand the personnel you have, the era we're in, and maybe they know a thing or two. Jalen Ramsey's an all-pro 5-6 times over for a freaking reason. Like, if he's saying something, maybe there's some validity to it. And I find it players either are loud mouths and they're jerks, or they're quiet. Like, why can't there be a middle ground? Why can't there be some gray in 2024?
Well, there might be now. There might be now with the change, because you've got a guy that has been around a successful defense, just like Fangio was. He's got a pedigree in terms of coaching Pro Bowl players at all positions, defensive end, linebacker, corner, safety. Name a guy in Baltimore you wouldn't trade for. They got a pretty good squad over there on the defensive side. And I'm sure they have a lot of players with the attitude that I'm the best player in the league. Same as the Miami Dolphins. And you want that, but you want to be able to get the best out of that. How do you do it? There's got to be a middle road somewhere along the line where you're taking the input from the player, using it in your scheme to be the best version of whatever yourself is on the defensive side. And that might happen with the Dolphins. Hopefully those guys that are injured can come back and be at 100%. Now, Chubb's probably not going to be available, but you hope Jalen Phillips comes back from the Achilles, and you hope that you make the right additions in the offseason to make this team what it could be.
I always like the old school mentality. If you're a corner, even if you're playing recreational ball, you want to go out there and guard the best guy. You want to go against the guy. Hey, I got someone.
Hey, I got him.
Stuff him the entire game, and you like to see a player get that opportunity until maybe he gets beaten like a drum and he needs some help. But that's doubtful that was going to happen with Jalen Ramsey. I'll say this, and you're much more intimately involved with the Dolphins and the coverage. You're there all the time, John. I used to be in that spot, but no longer. So I'm looking at this from the periphery and from a little bit of a distance. But Jalen Ramsey is either putting on the greatest facade I've ever seen, or he has sort of changed, a little bit in terms of becoming that kind of embraceable team leader where, my lasting image of Jalen Ramsey was when he pulled up to Jacksonville with a Brinks truck. And, it's kind of like a clown show, a little bit of a Deion Sanders, prime time type of show business thing. And yet when I listened to him in interviews and heard him talking and, saw the way that he reacted, like Lubie was pointing out, the guy could have sat out the whole season very easily and would have been understandable, but he worked his tail off to get back in there. I mean, he seems to be like Raheem Mostert is on the offensive side, just the epitome of like a team guy, which you wouldn't be expecting from a guy who had that kind of show off, put the spotlight on me type of approach that he had seemingly with Jacksonville. So it seems odd that, you wouldn't want to capitulate, sometimes and maybe listen to your stars. And if this guy wants to go out there and guard Stephon Diggs for an entire ball game, I'm figuring out a way to do that, right? I mean, almost like the old boxing one in basketball. It's like no matter where this guy goes, he's going to be shouted by our best defensive back, and they're going to have to scheme against that happening with whatever motion and different things they could do offensively to try and break that up. But I want my best guy on the best receiver, and so I'm kind of with Lubie on that I don't know that it's time to start applying like system styles when you have the talent, and you went out and I made this acquisition specifically for that reason, to have like a top corner. Now, Xavier Howard wasn't 100% this year all year, I guess, but if he's your number 2 guy, then you're in pretty good shape for the most part. So that seemed like an unfortunate divide that maybe Fangio should have made a couple of concessions on. But I mean, was that your impression? I mean, Ramsey seemed like an ideal guy to have on a team, didn't he?
Well, it was a luxury. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a luxury, especially when you look at the other side. And even Xavier at, I don't know, 80% is probably as good as most corners covering and trusting him. I just thought that there was something missing on the defense, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the linebacker play. I'm not sure. I mean, gosh, everybody seemed to get to the quarterback. I mean, you ask Christian Wilkins to up his sack input, he doubles it. He gets in the teens, I think.
Yeah.
Then you got Sealer that's making plays all over the place, and so they were good. They were good. They just weren't, as a team, good enough to close out games against really good, equal or just above average teams that were, if you're looking at apples to apples, and Dolphins in Philly, Dolphins in KC, Dolphins in Baltimore, Dolphins in Buffalo, they were just a step behind. And in the offseason, they need all the teams are going to go through change. The Dolphins need to find a way to, whatever that missing ingredient is, they need to find a way to get it and sustain it. Make it sustainable, though it's not just, hey, we're 4-0 in the month of September, and all of a sudden you go 2-2, and then you're 2-3, and then you go 3-1 and 3-1, and you're a game behind. It just seems like we're always we're only a game behind. The Dolphins were 3 games up.
Yes.
I mean, it was over in the AFC East, and they found a way to spit the bit. That's got to change. If you're going to be one of those teams, that has to change.
All right, only what? Do we have a week or so until the combine, so we can get right back into all of this stuff? Speculating about the NFL, you got the draft. It's never too soon to start doing mock drafts. John, I'm glad you're feeling better, and
Thank you.
all the best to you. Did you happen to watch any? I know it was Super Bowl Sunday. Any of the waste management tournament in Phoenix?
It seemed
which
like
is now the
everybody was
wasted management
wasted.
tournament. Yeah,
I know. Guys
That was
running
great.
around in bunkers, and I love the golfers all complaining about somebody yelling in their backswing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, they got to tone. They either have to tone it down or just make it like a Barstool's, tournament. And
It was
everything
like they were
goes.
playing at Faber College or something. I mean,
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
incredible. Yeah, my son, quite the wise guy, as you might imagine, since he's got the gene, and he sends me a picture of some guy, shirtless guy, sliding in the mud because they had some rainy conditions down some hill and into the fairway. And you're thinking, my God. And I was reading a little account of it today. I guess Zach Johnson got into
he got into
a
it.
screaming match with a fan, and other guys.
Billy
were
Horschel got into
Horschel.
it. I think Jordan Spieth had some words to say. Yeah, it's one of those tournaments. You know what it is. But
God,
I
it was
think
fun until it got out of hand. Yeah,
it's gone way over the top. I mean, when you're on the, what is that, the 16th hole, the par
16th
3?
hole, yeah.
When guy starts taking his shirt off and waving it, and people immediately throw their beers onto the green, like thousands of them, not just 10.
Yeah, you would have thought you were at a fight at the Olympics.
Issues.
Yeah, back in the day. All right, a lot of fun all season long. I hope
Yeah,
you'll
that
join
was
us
fun,
throughout
guys.
the off season as well. Then we can tap into your knowledge and expertise frequently, as football is never out of the conversation during the course of the off season. One last thing: odds Belichick. Somebody's going to get fired during the season. Does Bill Belichick come back at all this year, or just resign himself to the idea that he can work in TV? Many people feel he's an outstanding analyst in spite of the presence that he has and the demeanor at these press conferences, that he's great as an analyst, much like people say about Nick Saban, who did take a TV job.
Yes, he did.
Does he just resign himself to sitting out for the year, or if a job pops up after he got shined on by all the people that had availabilities this year, does he start to, just snap at the idea that, hey, if I can get a head coaching job again, I'm going to take it?
My gut tells me he would stay out the whole year. That way he could start fresh and get it the way he wants it. But in the back of my mind, I would say Bill Belichick has a number that he needs to get to. And if he can get in for a certain amount of games and get closer to that all-time winning, number, then he may do it. But I would say he'd wait for the entire season to be over.
Yeah, I would think Shula was hoisting a few when the final decision was made on Raheem Morris, and up there with the members of the 72 team that are in the same spot, just laughing his ass off. John, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. We're going to get down there. I don't know. Tommy Fox, I saw him on a milk carton. Where the hell is this guy?
No, I haven't talked to him. I have to reach out to Tom, but yeah, we definitely have to do that in the off season for sure.
Some kind of St. Thomas reunion or something. I mean, we'll find a reason to do it. And we got to get Mayo to try that Italian fisherman pizza. He's ready. Yeah, he's chomping at the bit. And literally, we'll be chomping on a lot of food. I think he'll be overwhelmingly impressed. So we'll have to get that arranged sometime soon. John, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
John Congemi, ladies and gentlemen. Pigskin Playbook.
That's great.
I guess that was the last one for the season, huh? I mean, we'll have to bring him back when some football issues come up. Maybe analyze the Masters for us. But we love John Congemi. He did a great job for us all year long. And that, of course, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, where his brother is like kind of a master of ceremonies. And
yes, it's a gym.
His brother Dominic's wife does a tremendous job. Really a great place. I can't wait. 1 week to go on this garbage, Lubie, and then
maybe in March.
Sky's the limit, man. I want to do everything left that's on my bucket list. One of which, one of the things is get down to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill before this contract expires.
Yeah.
All right, Lubie, we'll see you on the lunchbox. Everybody's going to be at home today, their home base.
We're at home today, yep.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry I missed you guys yesterday, but I was crammed in with a lot of different stuff, most of which went in a positive direction. So, very fortunate there. And we'll see you at 1 o'clock today. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox on South Florida Live. And, of course, you can catch it. Who isn't a member of the Let's Eat South Florida
food group? 142,000 now.
I didn't realize there were that many people. What is the population of Broward County? Because it's mostly people from Broward that are in there.
Well, that's the thing is it's people from all over South Florida. We have a lot. There's a lot of Palm Beach County people, some Miami, and then
good.
From all over the country. And there's a guy that's in Japan. Like people from all over the world. Use it to when they're traveling to and from South Florida, which a lot of people do year round. So it's actually somewhat worldwide. It's based out of South Florida. Broward County is a hub, but it's all over the world, and it's interesting.
Is Mayo going to have his list of great places to go on Valentine's Day?
Oh, maybe we can ask him.
A lot of specials. How do you feel about like the prefix menu? I'm not a big fan.
I've never done it, and
I don't even want to go to a place with a
I'm okay at places that do it. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay, if it's associated with one of these food festival things, and you have. I mean, you can't expect them to have everything ready for everybody, but and they want you to try certain things that are signature dishes and stuff like that. But in general, for Valentine's Day, I don't want to have like 3 choices for an entree. Do you?
No.
Yeah. You want the chicken? You want the fish? Or you want the steak? It's like you're going to a fucking bar mitzvah. Get out of here.
No, I don't want that.
Now, what are you doing for Valentine's Day, Olivia? Do you have a plan?
So as was yesterday, our 7 years of being together.
Oh, that's right. Congratulations.
We went out 2 days before Valentine's originally. So
very smart.
Valentine's anniversary, the non-wedding anniversary. Our wedding anniversary is next month, so that's so fun.
Okay.
But they always were hand in hand. We always celebrated them hand in hand. And ever since we moved in together, we would do, since she liked lobster, I would do a lobster roll and lobster mac and cheese. And we would just be decadent, and we would do that. I guess we would do it with our schedule, whatever day. It didn't even have to be on Valentine's or the anniversary. She, as I said yesterday, she was bitching at me about food. So she actually made dinner last night, which was really cool, and it was really nice. And then she's like, well, for a tradition, you can do one of the two. So I was like, that's okay.
Just grab some live mains and
maybe going by Wicked and either getting one of their lobster rolls or one of their lobster mac and cheese.
Oh, there you go. That would be the way to go. Yeah. See Brian, man. He'll take care of you.
But I don't go out. We don't go out. It's not, and we love all the restaurants we're involved in, and I'm glad they're all doing some Valentine's Day.
Oh, great spot.
Tropical Acres, all of them. Shenanigan, great for them. We don't go out. We do stuff at home, whatever it is, whether our tradition or cooking, and keep it to the house when it's around this time of the year.
All right, sounds good. All right, we'll have more on that on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox and a host of other things. That's coming up at 1 o'clock today. Let's Eat South Florida. I'd suggest you subscribe to the food group. That would be the way to go.
Yes, it's freaking great.
It is very valuable. I know Mayo gets frustrated with it because he's involved with all aspects of administration, and he sees all of the crackpot posts that people attempt to get up there. And I don't get the kvetching and the moaning here because when you think about it, Lubie, I mean, we barely brushed the surface of the number of great places that you could go to eat in a daily hour show.
Yep.
You tend to focus in on the places you're familiar with, but man, there are a lot of great places here in town. You can go to almost any area, like a small, 1 square mile area,
Yep.
and find 10 to 15 places that you would like to have, some kind of meal at. All right, so we'll have that for you at 1 o'clock. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:09.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.